There was a time when the 3D platforming genre appeared to be dead, but it feels like we've hit a bit of a renaissance in the latest years. The newest entry in the genre is Tasomachi Behind the Twilight, a charming adventure collectathon made by a single developer, Nokras. This happens to be an absolutely beautiful game, and it succeeds in its goal of presenting this genre to the modern era, but it's marred by technical issues, leaving me feeling like this was not ready for prime time. Tasomachi's visuals and world immediately stand out. The art direction is striking and the environments are incredibly unique. The levels are inspired by East Asian architecture, so the general layout makes them fun to explore, which is incredibly important in these kinds of games. The character designs also complement this presentation, but it's really just a shame that the only characters in this game are the protagonist and cats. To add to that, the music is really well done, from composer Ujiko, and the soundtrack does an exceedingly good job at setting the atmosphere of the area you're in, offering a perfect mood as you progress through the levels. My only problem is that there wasn't a lot of tracks, and I was really wishing for more variety about halfway through the game. As for the gameplay, Tasomachi stylistically hails from an era of games that time has left behind. The 3D platformer collectathon that was most prevalent in the N64 days with games like Mario 64 and Banjo-Kazooie. While not exactly unique, this genre has been out of vogue for so long that any new entry is appreciated. Tasomachi focuses on getting you immersed in exploration and adventure. The adventures set in large levels are dense in detail and filled with collectibles. The game encourages you to have a good time just wandering around without any major time limit, so you can properly get to know the places you're visiting. It's a throwback to a more innocent time, and the feeling of wandering around in this world is something I couldn't help but love. It also happens to be why 3D platformers are one of my favorite genres. Tasomachi's collectibles are called Sources of the Earth, and aren't big rewards like stars in Mario 64, but are fairly easy to acquire and are spread out all across the world like in Mario Odyssey. However, I felt like the sources were more rewarding than the moons in Mario Odyssey, because the reward matched the achievement. For most things, Tasomachi's small reward of the source is satisfying, and for big achievements, the source is usually paired with something else, like expanding the level or gaining a new movement mechanic. This positive attribute is partially caused by a problem in the game though, as you're artificially limited in how you move, what you can get, and where you can go. I understand the latter two because it encourages you to come back to levels later. Not having your whole moveset at the beginning though gives a very bad first impression because Tasomachi's beginning isn't really the best representation of the mechanics. Jumping at the beginning gives you basically no height, and this action alone causes many simple moves to feel tricky. It's like if you made an entire platformer based on 3D Zelda platforming. When you acquire that double jump and dash, Tasomachi really comes into its own and spotlights the depth of exploration. I don't understand why they couldn't just give you the full moveset at the beginning. Sure, the design of the early challenge sanctuaries wouldn't have pushed your understanding of the basic mechanics as much, but I think I would have just preferred more complex mechanics from the get-go. There aren't enemies in the game, so your only real focus is on platforming in the world. It's bizarre, but this lack of conflict is actually kind of appreciated, as it allows you to slow down and admire your surroundings. There are 3 stages of gameplay: the open world section mentioned earlier, the sanctuary challenge areas, and flying on the airship. The airship only really appears at the end of the game, so it's effectively a non-factor in the gameplay loop, but even then, when you're fully absorbed, Tasomachi is incredibly satisfying. The sacred tree sanctuaries are very well executed. Each room requires you to solve a platforming obstacle, which is long enough to be challenging, but not too long to get stuck or become dull. On the technical side though, this is where things start to head downhill. Tasomachi is in really rough shape. I've had this game crash on me about every hour on my desktop, which is likely a compatibility issue with AMD graphics. Even if we ignore the crashing though, Tasomachi is still full of janky moments of gameplay. The airdrop action in particular stood out to me as being wildly inconsistent and awkward. When a platform is moving, you'll be basically flung across the map when you jump. Walking up steps looks janky as all hell because it appears like you magically jump up when you're just walking. Sadly, the visuals aren't spared from this jank. The English text in UI comes off as incredibly cheap. The lighting of the main character looks flat at all times, which causes the main character to stick out like a sore thumb. The character animations are rough. There are basically no animations associated with the main character. And one thing that really bothered me was that she doesn't ever blink. Ever. Even though the worlds are well lived in, there are barely any NPCs, which made the world feel empty and hollow. All of this adds up to make the game feel and look soulless. Tasomachi feels like it's missing polish and charm. A huge omission is that there isn't a list of total sources, so you can never see which ones you have or do not have. There are basically no settings either. No resolution options, no options for windows. You can select from visual prefixes and that's about it. Tasomachi is an atmospheric 3D platformer collectathon that succeeds in what it wants to do. But there's a massive lack of polish, making me feel like this wasn't ready to be released. I can see what this experience is aiming for, and it can be argued that this game isn't accomplished for a single developer who created it. However, a lot of optimizations and options need to be added to this adventure to be considered finished. There's fun to be had in this game when you're not paying attention to the flaws, but take a step back and they're glaringly apparent. Noisy Pixel is giving Tasomachi a 6.5 out of 10. Thanks for watching. This has been Noisy Pixel signing off. If you're interested in more information about this game, please check out the Noisy Pixel website where we have news and written reviews. If you're interested in content like this, please subscribe to the channel and hit the bell to be notified about our future content, and have a great day.